Welcome to this Facebook Live with Dad.info, and I'm delighted to welcome Kieran Anders with us today from Dad's Matter. And so, Kieran, I'm just going to warn you right now that I'm going to be asking you loads of really difficult questions. About what you do, why you do it, and so get ready for that. And also, Kieran, one of my favorite things is just to say, what are your big insights? What are your big tips? And maybe we can have some conversations around that if that's okay. So Dad.info is really around us to support dads. Dad.info is around to support dads who are going through great times, but also going through really difficult times. And our heart really is to not just say this is what we think of the world, but actually to invite others in and say this is what they're seeing, this is their experience, and this is their story. And hopefully, get these multiple voices. This is what it looks to be like a dad in the real world where we are right now. And I'm a dad. I'm a dad of 3 girls, teenage girls. So my hands are full. I've got a 17-year-old and 2 14-year-olds. I'll leave you to figure out what my life looks like, but it's a lot of fun. But actually what I know is that that's kind of my experience. Everybody's got a different experience. So Kieran, that allows me to introduce you right now. Just tell me a bit more about yourself, Kieran, and also Dad Matters.
Yeah, so I'm a dad too. I've got a 22-year-old and a 15-year-old, both girls. I'm also a foster carer for a young lad who's 12. My experience of my journey into being a dad was quite traumatic in that we did experience loss really early on, and that sort of set the tone then for subsequent pregnancies, which became really difficult. Made it quite. It was a time that there was things that could have happened around me that would have helped, and they didn't. Obviously, 20 odd years ago, I was 21, 22 years old. Didn't really know about reaching out for that support or where to find it, or even what was there. So Dad Matters kind of is the passion behind my experiences. But we're also really lucky in that we're funded through the NHS perinatal pathway in Greater Manchester. We're embedded in the perinatal mental health pathway across all of that area, which means that dads are thought about within all of those services, whether it's perinatal mental health, adult mental health, maternity, health visiting, third sector support like Home Start. So we're really lucky that that's how we're kind of structured. Really supports the fact that we're a peer support agency. All the guys that work for us are all dads. They've all got their own experiences of becoming a dad, and we bring that into our work. And it's quite unique to be a part of the services around a family, particularly to support dads within that. We have branched out. You will see us in Gloucestershire, Warrington, Blackpool, with another half a dozen places looking to set up a Dad Matters project at some point in the future. So it's a model that we can share. Our primary focus is parent-infant relationships. So it's all around attachment and bonding. It's all around supporting families to be okay to do that. So that means mental health and also accessing services. So what's there? How can it help? How can dads practically support themselves to be the dad that they really want to be? Sorry.
Can I pick up on a couple of points there, Kieran?
Yeah,
there's a couple of things you just said. I'm like, we need to unpack that a little bit. So I'd like you to just pick up on some of the evidence around men with postnatal depression, right? Because that surely men don't get that. That's not a thing, right? And I know that you've got a few stories to tell around that. And also, actually, straight after that, can we talk about attachment? Because that's a huge thing, So just you want to unpack this whole, why is it important to have Dad Matters, and what are you trying to address there in terms of postnatal depression?
Absolutely. So around 6 or 7 years ago, in Tameside, which is one of the boroughs in Greater Manchester, the Early Attachment Service, which was an NHS service built within the CAMS service, they're there to develop kind of those early relationships between babies under 2 and before and from conception and their caregivers. They were working with Home Start, which is a national charity with schemes all across the country who support families in the home. They were working together to develop a peer support model where Home Start supported the work of that parent-infant team. That model was so successful in its outcomes that were around well-being, around parenting, around attachment, that it was adopted in Greater Manchester by the whole system, which is another 9 boroughs across the system. So Dad Matters was born from that work, in that they were doing a lot of work. All of the stuff is relevant to both parents because it's attachment. It's around developmental goals and relationships. It's not a biological imperative like some perinatal mental health work would be. So they realized that they weren't reaching dads with this information, with this content, with this support, and they wanted to do that. So that's kind of where we came from. We're branded differently from Home Start because most of the men we spoke to in our pilot, they assumed that Home Start would start the car for them on a cold day. They didn't think that it was something that they would engage with or relate to. They also told us they needed to see the word dad or father in any of the resources that were provided. They needed to see themselves in the brand, which means images, stories, blogs, everything needs to reflect experiences that dads are having, especially some of those more difficult experiences around mental health struggles, loss, separation. We need to see those in other people so that we can acknowledge it in ourselves.
To pick up on that point, just Kieran, pick up on that point right now, because we're talking about postnatal depression and stuff like that, and actually a lot of dads are quite surprised because a lot of dads, I was talking to a dad recently and he said, well, I thought I was the only one, and that's just not the case, right? So just pick up on that for a minute. Talk about depression and what happens with dads sometimes, and why do we need to reach out to help?
So with postnatal depression in mums, there's a massive situational impact. So sleep deprivation, increased responsibility, stress around caring for a baby, and all of that stuff is situational. But there's also some hormonal changes. We know that that's going to be the case for women who are pregnant and then have a baby. There's a window we call baby blues, which is 2 weeks of fluctuating mood because of hormones. But after that, it should settle down. And if it doesn't, we're looking for postnatal depression. Well, what we know now is that men's hormones also change during pregnancy. So when their partner's pregnant and there's a baby in the house, testosterone levels drop and a certain type of estrogen goes up. And that helps us to be more attuned to our baby, so we can be more aware of their needs, their cues, and respond to them in a caring way. That helps baby to feel safe, which then helps baby to explore the world around them. So if they feel safe, they can explore the world and settle and be part of their own development, if you like. But that also means then that the situation that parents find themselves in is the same. Mums and dads both experience sleep deprivation, increased responsibilities, stress around looking after a baby. There's lots and lots of comparables there. So men absolutely can have depression in the postnatal period because they've had a baby. And that is the reason, that's the cause of that depression. There is screening available. We can use the Edinburgh tool, which is used for mums. It's been validated for men. There's also lots of other ways to support men before they get to the kind of clinical interventions. So peer support, men's talking groups are all really, really relevant for men. It's a great way for us to step into that support arena without feeling like we're accessing support that's meant for mum. So it's definitely there. It's definitely, the symptoms are very similar, although men tend to display more around frustration and anger, and maybe substance use. That tends to be more of an indicator in men than women.
Yeah. So could you unpick that? So just if a guy's listening right now going, I've had a baby, 3 months ago, and this might be me. How, just go through some of those symptoms, just unpack that. How would they know? It's not just a bad day at work. Something else is going on, Sam. We need to address that. How would they know? It's
really hard to know as men because we are really good at ignoring those signs in ourselves. We might spot them in other people, but we find it really difficult. But things like not being able to wake up, or sleeping too much, or not sleeping at all, being irritable, frustrated, maybe your coping mechanisms that you would normally use, maybe you're using them more. Maybe you're using different ones that are not as healthy. Maybe you don't want to be around people, or maybe you feel like you need to be around people more. Those kind of changes in behavior are the indicators, really. And what we would say is the first thing you need to do before you get to the point where you feel like that, is you need to speak to people about how you can communicate these issues if they happen. Speak to mum about how you can speak to her if she's struggling, and how she can speak to you if she thinks you're struggling. You need to have those communications in place beforehand. But also, if you do realize that this is happening, the first and the best thing to do is to tell somebody about it. That can be your partner, it could be friends, it could be work colleagues, it could be HR at work if you really feel that that's appropriate. There's peer support agencies like us, like you can also access places like Dad's Rock and Leeds Dads, and obviously Dad.info, and we've got Dad AF. There's quite a lot of.
We're out there. There's loads of us. We're going, we love you. Come and find us. Tell us about it. So they say they reach out to you, Kieran, like, because I can talk about Dad.info in a minute or two, but in terms of if they want to reach out to you, they're thinking, I've told my partner, and I've shared that, but actually, this might be bigger than I thought. So, for example, they're just sat there sometimes, in the lounge, just their fists are clenched with rage, and they're going, "What is going? Why am I like? I've just never been crossing my life. Why is this? I think I need a bit more support." How would they get hold of you? What would they do?
So for us, we have a lot of contact points within our service. The main ones that we use are universal contacts. So we do outreach at antenatal clinics. We do online new dad workshops, which is a bit like an antenatal class, but it's all around attachment and mental health and support. We have a dad's wellbeing session on a Tuesday night that they join our mailing list and get sent the link to it. We also do walk and talk sessions they can book onto, bring the babies along. So there's a lot of contact points universally. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have referrals. So we have our health visitors, midwives, perinatal mental health staff can refer dads directly into us to get one-to-one support. But there's a gap in the middle, isn't there, where dads need to reach us organically in their own kind of way. And that tends to happen through social media mainly. We are on pretty much every platform, including TikTok, which seems a bit ridiculous. But, I quite enjoy it. My kids are absolutely horrified. Yeah, my kids hate the fact that I've got a TikTok account, but it's not. Yeah, they're on some of the videos as well, and she goes mad because her friends find them and then share them at school. But yeah, it's great to be able to be reached that way. We get younger dads reaching us through Insta. We get those old dads that are probably they're the dads that are kind of set on not talking. They're the dads that have been through that kind of experience of we don't do that as men. So at 30, 35, they tend to find us on Facebook. We tend to find professionals finding us on Twitter and signposting to us that way. And what we do is it's just soft touch contact. So what's going on for you? Offload. How's that impacting you? Let's talk about options that are available, and let's signpost you into some of those things that might help. What we always encourage dads to do is speak to the health visitor. I know it's difficult sometimes. We feel that maybe that's not for us, but they are there for you. They have a wealth of resources that can support you in whatever's happening, and they should be your first point of contact. They might refer you into us for that peer support, but they might also be able to refer you into adult mental health services for clinical support if you need that. A lot of areas now have priority access to mental health support for dads with under twos, so it's absolutely crucial that we follow that pathway as best we can.
Well, I'm gonna come in there, right? Because there's one of the things I found really helpful, right, when any of this stuff is so we use the word stigma a lot, but I think there is a kind of a thing with blokes saying, well, I'm the only one, and therefore I can't own up to this, or my situation is different because but I'm 38, I'm a first-time dad, I should be really, really happy, and yet instead of being really, really happy, I just find myself my dad was talking about going to the shops, once, and he just bursting into tears, for no reason. And I think we've got to tackle this. This is normal. It is, in fact, I would say, if you're a dad and you've gone through the whole pregnancy and new birth and everything like that, and you've just swum through it, you probably didn't understand what just happened. There's a baby dependent on you for the next 50 years of your life. You need to be aware of that. And that is a burden. That's the thing. So actually, rather than saying, oh, there's a few of us who need a bit of special support, actually all of us do. And it's crazy. Any person, unless you're Captain James Teacup, right, he doesn't need support, the rest of us do. And in fact, even he had a doctor. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, here is we've got to puncture the thing about this is for the weak guys. right? If you don't understand what we're talking about here, you need to think that there's a baby here on the way. And then, so once we've done stigma, and we talk about this a lot. So we got a website, as you know, Dad.info, and we have a forum on there, and we, people can unload and say, is this just me? And just, it can be anything, but this is one of the big issues that does come up. I think once we've done that, the moment it's like lancing the ball. The moment you know that it's kind of normal, some of the stress goes out of it. So rather than thinking I'm bonkers, you start to think, actually, this is okay. And the reason why we've got to tackle that is, Kieran, you tell me, what is the biggest killer of blokes under 50?
It's definitely suicide.
It's suicide. And who are all the blokes under 50? Dads.
Yeah.
And we got to punch this, Kieran, haven't we?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest, there's two points I want to pick up on there. Firstly, one of the biggest things is we don't collect data on those suicide statistics of who is a dad. And we also don't collect data on who is a dad within the first 2 years, because within mums, that's a massive indicator, and that actually helps to focus funding into those areas. But we don't collect it. There's a few reasons why. Resources for those services that collect that data just aren't capable of collecting it. They don't have that capacity. They don't have the right systems in place to be able to record that data, record dad's information or co-parents' information, and that leads to a lack of information further on down that kind of parenting journey. And we need to do something about that. That needs to change. Some places are now looking at how that works, particularly with perinatal mental health services and the new maternity mental health pilots. They're looking at how they support partners in that area. So hopefully that's something that will change. The other thing to pick up on is when you were saying about stigma. There are a lot of campaigners out there that are shouting that men's mental health and dad's mental health needs support, and that dads need to be able to open up to get that support. But actually, like you said, those dads who can't open up or feel that that's not for them still need support. They still need education, information. They still need peer support. They still need to see that it's normal. And they might not open up about how they're feeling, but they still need to see it. So having a universal aspect to what we do is a key part of how we the dads that aren't ready to open up yet. We've had dads in our education classes who have sat through the class, joined in with everything, all the bravado and the banter and the joking, and it's great. And at the end of the class have stayed behind and said, I didn't realize that this stuff could affect me, but I really do need to speak to someone. It's the first time they've ever had the opportunity to do it and have heard about it. And up until that point, they weren't ready to open up. And without that universal intervention there, they wouldn't have opened up. They would have carried on that journey right up until their baby being delivered and beyond, feeling stressed and feeling like they couldn't cope with it. And that's not great. The first time you speak it out loud, it sounds normal to you, because we've all heard people say stuff like that to us, and it's normal. But until we say it ourselves, it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel like something that should be for us. And we're very good at ignoring those kind of signs, symptoms. We can put them away in a little box, and we can carry on and do all of the practical stuff that we do as men. But we need to manage those emotional triggers. And sometimes it's in a practical way. Sometimes we don't need to talk about feelings and emotions. We need to talk about the impact on you, or what it made you do, or what you said about it, or how what your thoughts around it were. We can speak practically about emotional subjects, help dads to open up that way as well.
Yeah, and also the other thing I want to tackle on this, right, is it's not for it's not like, oh, we invented being sad 5 years ago, modern men. Yeah, it's not like that, right? This stuff has been around for not decades, centuries. It's not like modern man has got all in touch with his feelings and wants to cry a bit. Actually, the suicide's been the biggest killer of dads forever, like for decades and decades and decades. It's just no one talked about it. So what we're talking about is, and we talk about peer support, but Kieran, come on, what we talk about is mates. Getting some mates along. Or, if we're short on friends, and lockdown's done weird things to all of us. If we're short on friends, that's where place like, Dad Matters come in. Because if you can't unload, this to some of your mates in the pub, at least unload to someone who's gone through this and knows what it is, And I say this, I've had nights where I've woken up in the morning, I've been awake most of the night, I've sweated in the bed all night long, just the sheets are drenched, but I've got I've got, I've always had big jobs. I like to think of myself as, a fairly tough guy and stuff like that. But it impacts everyone. No one gets away with this. And whatever face I might put on a show like this, at the same time underneath it, sometimes, I'm like, they're going, this is actually quite hard. This is quite hard. Anyway, I've only got you for a few more minutes, right? And I want to switch the conversation because the tone is a bit there, right? Let's just take it up a notch. And because you were talking about attachment, right? And so a lot of dads listening won't know what we're talking about, but I'm a huge fan of it. It's like, to me, it's a superpower that parents have got. What have dads got to contribute into attachment? Why is it important that we are around for our babies? Go on, tell us.
So basically, the way babies' brains work, they develop really, really quickly in the first 1,000 days. So that's from conception to the age of 2. Their brain develops 80% of its full capacity within those 2 years. That means that all of those brain connections that are there become the blueprint for how they deal with stuff later on in life. It affects things like not just educational attainment, but how resilient they are, how likely they are to be in trouble with the police, how physical illnesses like allergies and skin conditions. It's a blueprint for everything, basically. And those connections are made by positive interaction, because that's how babies relate to the world. And the people that they get those reactions or interactions from are their caregivers. We always assume that would be mum, and obviously mum's one of the main ones because of the breastfeeding, and also because
absolutely,
and because baby and mum are together for 9 months. They're one entity. Baby thinks as one entity. They think mum is them, and what dads do is they offer that kind of aspect of separation. So when babies start to build an attachment with dad, that also shows that there are other people in the world. It builds empathy in babies. Having a dad involved in your family is one of the biggest indicators of improved empathy in children. So we know that through research. So when they start to build that attachment with dads, what babies are realizing is that they're safe, not just with mum, but also with dad. And that's not biological. That can be with foster carers, adopters. It could be through IVF, surrogacy. It could be nursery workers. It could be any kind of caregivers that are there long term. And babies feel safe. They explore the world. They develop, but they've always got a safe base to come back to, knowing that's there for them. Some of the main things that we will want to do in those positive interactions they're just really simple things that we all do often naturally. Things like smiling at your baby. One of the things that I found fascinating, and next time you see a dad with a newborn, watch how when baby cries, dad pulls a sad face and then brings that face into a happy face, and then baby calms down by seeing dad do it. Like, he's acknowledged that I'm sad. He knows that I'm not feeling great, but he's okay, so I'm safe. And it's a two-way interaction. We call it serve and return. And you see how it happens backwards and forwards.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
It happens in conversations. So when a dad talks to a baby, if you leave a space, baby will respond. They might not use the words, or they probably won't use the words straight away, but they'll make noises, they'll gurgle, they might hiccup if they're not comfortable. Nervous stuff like hiccups and burps and all of that stuff can happen. They might kick a leg or kick an arm, or they might smile. All of that stuff is them reacting to what's happening. And you can go backwards and forwards in a conversation like that. Really helps babies to develop that part of the brain that helps them to feel safe and then explore.
So here's the thing, right? So, just so everybody's really clear about this. So when we do this, as dads, obviously you've got mums normally primary caregivers, absolutely right. But as dads, as we do this, we begin, it's a superpower we begin to allow their neural pathways to make, their brain literally gets bigger. Literally, it begins to form new synapses and everything like that over those first couple of years. And actually what we're doing is we're helping them in terms of, right then, when they're 18 months old, we're actually helping them in their English essay when they're 12. And right there at 18 months old, we're helping them, avoid difficult or risky behaviours that could end them up in the youth court system. And right there at 18 months old, we're beginning to help them be able to understand relationship. It is a superpower. It's just the thing. And for dads to feel, often we can come out feeling a little bit worthless, and we're third wheel and stuff like that. But actually, it is amazing. It's amazing.
It's fantastic to see that. I mean, a lot of the work that we do is around those micro interactions with dads. One story that I love to tell. We had a walk and talk. Dad had twins. They were about 4 weeks old. in like a twin pram,
Yeah.
and he had rain covers, and one of the rain covers was on the right way around, one of the rain covers was on the wrong way around, and he didn't really know how to get them on there and make it work out. And you know, if you're with your mates or you went to like a dad's playing stay group, then they'll probably say, no, this is how you do it, and they'll show you how to change it around. But what we were able to do with the expertise that we have in the team and the training that we get and the kind of flow through from the early attachment services was we could talk to him about the fact that the rain cover's there with a flap for baby to see his face, so they can interact with his face, they can feel safe when they're not settled. And we could demonstrate that when one's on the wrong way around and one's on the right way around, the baby with the right way around one was absolutely calm, and the one where it wasn't and they couldn't see his face was looking constantly. And as soon as he turned it around and opened the flaps, and from that we could talk about touch as well. So putting your tummy on baby's belly, stroking the face, talking to them so they can hear your voice, is all a great way of consoling your baby, but also building attachment. It's all about them feeling safe with you, and touch and talk and interaction and conversation are all the ways to do it. But the absolute biggest tip that I can give anyone is skin to skin. When your baby's born, mum will get the first hour usually, if she's able, which is kind of a supports to kind of initiate breastfeeding. But after that, it's get your top off, get the baby on your chest. And midwives nowadays usually will give you a baby and tell you to take your top off. Premature baby.
Any old baby, just like you're walking past.
I don't know. I don't know if they just dish them out. But yeah, so NICU babies have kangaroo care, so it may be inside a t-shirt, maybe under a blanket, but skin to skin, and it helps to release all of those happy hormones that we both need, babies and dads. It helps to regulate breathing, help regulate temperature. Again, it just helps them to feel safe, and you can do that straight after birth. You can do it if mum's not able to. It's beneficial for your babies. And we hear dads saying, oh, babies don't need that, my nipples don't work, they don't need to be on my hairy chest. All of that is rubbish. Babies really want to be on your chest.
You got to roll, man. And
they might try and latch on, which can be awkward. It can feel a bit strange. They might try, but soon enough they'll realize there's no milk in these nipples. Let's just calm down and chill out a little bit.
This is the 15 rated version, right?
Yeah. And then you can go on past that. When you get home, like, it's a great way to settle your baby, to have after bath times or just before bedtime. It's a great way to relax with them. When they get to teenage years, it's frowned upon by teenagers. They really don't like you walking around with your top off saying give a couple. But it's definitely worth doing in those early years, and I can't recommend it enough.
Your logo, is that you on the left?
It's not. Although I do accept that it does look like me, and actually
suspiciously like you.
So 4.5 years ago, when we were designing the kind of the brand, we did some consultation. My hair was a little bit more like that then, but what we found was that without the beard, it didn't look like a dad. So the beard was an indicator that it was a dad. So that's why it kind of happened. But now I'm not allowed to shave, so. Try and keep on brand. But then some of the guys we've got working for us, the first person that we employed was Mick, and he looks like that more than I do, but he's ginger. So it was like a game of Guess Who then. So now we've got Lee, Nick, Eric, and we all look a little bit different with dark skin or different hair or a beard or not a beard or glasses. So yeah, we try and we joke about Guess Who all the time.
All right. So what's your parting thought, Kieran? What's your main thing?
I think it's very much about talking about what's going on for you in a very practical way. Find somewhere to do that. We don't talk about families and parenting often in the pub with our mates, but there will be a mate there that you can talk to about parenting who has been through it. And it might just be as simple as saying, do you know what? I've not slept well this week. Or do you know what? I'm really struggling with this part of parenting. What do you advise? Men love to give advice. We love it. And they'll respond to you by giving you advice, and then it feels more productive. So reaching out is important, but also education. Read as much as you can, watch as many videos as you can, get to places like Dad.info, Dad Matters, and DadPad as well is another great resource for information. We need to make sure that we're getting as much as we can so that we can do the best job that we can. And don't worry, you'll get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we all get through it. It's time that helps us. And the worry is the bit that we need to deal with in the moment, I think.
Kieran, it has been a joy meeting with you. I wish you the very best. I'm so thrilled about your success with Dad Matters. It's really exciting. I think it's a fundamentally critical service you're providing. And I know that in the work that we do, with dads who've got older kids and so on, I'm a parent support worker. If they'd met you, when their babies were 3 months old, we'd have a lot less work going on in the work that we do. So I just cannot recommend you and your organisation well enough. It's been a joy to meet with you, Kieran. You take care. God bless you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Cheers, Ian. Bye-bye.